Cost me a summer, $500, just to call her mine. Oh, Mr. Johnson says she'll burn some oil, son, but she'll run just fine. She's got a rip in the seat and the roof might leak. She'll pull the right when you brake, but with some spark plug wires and a couple new tires, man, I'd be out of here if that's all it takes. But when I sat behind that wheel, it all seemed so clear through that cracked windshield. Last 2 years, been working at the Lano's, pumping gas and changing tires. Yeah, I'd leave this town and not think twice if I could just get fired. But with the cars in the lot, the work never stops. In a world, he couldn't make it alone. And every day around 5, Tammy Jo walks by. Well, I wonder if she'd say yes to a ride home. And when we sat behind that wheel, it all...
Go to the Artist Spotlight of the Week, and you will find Terry. And by the way, guys, you can find him. He's actually out on Twitter. He's out on Facebook. He's out on Reverb Nation. And, better yet, he's hanging out with yours truly today, coming from my home state of Missouri. Our Artist Spotlight of the Week, Terry Tanner. How are you, sir? Better yet, he's hanging out with yours truly today, coming from my home state of Missouri. Our Artist Spotlight of the Week, Terry Tanner. How are you, sir?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. I really appreciate you having me on today. It's awesome.
You know, I got to tell you, first of all, I did not know you were from Missouri. It's like this baritone voice. You've got the story, you've got the message, and you're fun to listen to. How did this all come about?
Well, I mean, growing up in Missouri, you know what it's like.
Yep.
I'm a hometown boy, just small town right outside of Fort Leonard Wood.
Are you talking Rolla, St. James? Or
Right, exactly,
Yep.
Rolla, St. James. But I grew up in Waynesville, which is a small little town. Right. So, you know, the springs down here, trout fishing, hunting, just enjoying life right around here. I mean, you can't get any better childhood than here. So.
I agree with that. Now, I'm reading your bio, and, you know, I was just talking about my son, Stephen, how he grew up with music in his life. In your bio, you say you grew up with music in your life. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did. I mean, you hear everyone say it, you know, we start singing in church, but for me, I mean, I did do that, but we would drive back and forth from my grandmother's house up near St. Louis, and Mom and Dad would have country music on the radio. And I can remember one of the first songs I can remember is Kiss an Angel, Good Morning.
Oh my gosh.
Just wailing in the back seat. And, you know, my mom would just laugh and giggle, and, you know, making her laugh just seemed to be the thing. So I started singing when I was real young. We have music in my family. My cousins play guitar. He plays lead guitar in my band. One of my other cousins is also a huge, local musician here. So it's just all around you when you're growing up, you know?
Yeah. And I did notice too, because I don't think we're too much, age difference. I mean, probably within a decade of each other. I see where you also liked, you know, genres such like the Doobie Brothers, 38 Special, the Eagles. Of course, there were some classic rock bands there.
Oh, absolutely. I get all that from my older brothers. Growing up, we'd jump in the van. You know, I was probably the brother that's older than me is 6 years older. And, we'd jump in the car, man, he'd take off. And next thing I know, the AC/DC's blaring on the radio, and you just catch into it. You know, you just Doobie Brothers and, especially Bob Seger.
Oh, my God.
You hear the soul and the roots and just coming out of him. It's awesome. So.
Well, first of all, you know, let's just talk about just for a minute, because I'm going to ask you a question that builds off of this. You were actually, I'm assuming, I don't want to assume this, but I'm assuming you were in between 86 and 92. And
Absolutely.
Okay, and then you went back in as a warrant officer. But how did
not right away, but yes. I mean, you join back up for the second time, and you've got to do a little bit more enlisted time before you can become a warrant officer.
So how did music? How did you find room for music while you're going through all this? Because my gosh, we know the last decade and a half we've been in all kinds of hell, right? So how do you find music?
Well, let me tell you, in '92, when I got out of the Army the first time, we got back from the Gulf War, I decided out, and I stayed in Germany. And during that time, I found music initially, to the point where I actually wanted to start performing and writing songs. So I moved from Germany straight to Nashville in 1997, and I spent 9 years chasing that dream. And times got tough. I had a little development type deal going on, and management got in a big fight, and money got tight, and I decided that I was going to join the Army again. So once I signed up in the Army again, immediately I was deployed. So it was tough finding time, but music's a passion, so you just keep doing it. The whole time I was deployed to Iraq this past time, I wrote songs. And you're hearing some of them right now on the EP that's released. So,
let me ask you a question, because I always ask my independent artists. I mean, you listen to any interview that I've ever done, I always ask this question. But you're bringing it up a little bit earlier for me. You were talking about you were in Nashville and your management and all those started having issues, so they kind of basically dropped the ball on you. What would you prefer if I were to ask you a label to pick you up? You have millions of dollars, but they control everything you do, or the flexibility of everything you want to do when you want to do it?
I think now that I'm, like you just said, older, I like this way, to be honest with you. I like to have the control over everything that I'm doing. When that wall went down in Nashville, I lost control of some of the songs that I'd written. I didn't have those any longer. They were locked up in probate. So, right now, no one can touch any of the songs I'm writing. They're mine, and they're underneath my publishing company. So that's what's awesome.
So how has social media helped you with that?
The best thing is I can put it directly out there. I can see how the fans and my friends and everybody responds to those songs immediately. And especially like this right now, or this radio show, AVR. You guys are helping so much. You don't understand. You're hitting 93% of the world right now. It's a big market for me, and I appreciate it.
Believe me, like I said, when I first heard your music, just for everybody to know this, it wasn't because you were military. I just liked what I heard. Military just had put a smile on my face after the fact. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then to find out your fellow show me, what can I say at that?
No doubt. Show me.
Yeah. So how did you go then from, you said you had an older brother, and the influences, of course, Bob Seger. My favorite, by the way, if you ever listen to my classic rock show, I always say he's the favorite. He's what turned me on to rock, to be honest with you. But my mother as well. Like I said, I grew up in Missouri. My mom's a huge Ray Price fan. And so how did you take that and then turn it from going into rock, and then all of a sudden you came back to country? How did that transition work?
Well, it's real interesting because as a kid, I loved country music. And then as I started to hit those teen years, things started to change where I wanted to listen to a little bit more different stuff than my parents were listening to. So, rocking out and things like that were it. I grew up in the 80s. I was a high school student in the 80s. So, I went from country to that southern type 70s rock right into the 80s music, which right now I just don't listen to it anymore. But eventually I worked right back into telling stories. And I think that's really where it's at. When you're the songs that I write, I like to tell stories. And it's a little bit different from probably what you're hearing on the radio today. But, that's what we're missing a lot in country music these days is that storytelling.
And I'm glad you touched on that, because I've been saying this for at least the last few years. Country music now is more of what we called Southern rock at the time. Would you agree with that?
I would. I'd say it's Southern rock, a little bit of pop. And I don't, believe me, I love all kinds of music. I love what's out there today. I love a lot of it. It just doesn't fit my style or my voice, so whenever it comes to how I write and what I kick out from my memories and my experiences, it's more of a storytelling type thing.
So when you actually go on stage in front of people, I guess this is kind of, I'm thinking kind of outside the box here for a second. If they're singing some of your stuff, your original stuff, and you got some younger people in there, and you got some older folks in there, and you as a performer, I know you can say, all right, they're digging it, they're getting into it, or I'm losing them. Do you change your style any? Do you have something in your playlist like, let's jazz this up or slow this down a little bit?
If you look at my playlist for my set list for the band, I probably got 200 songs on there, and we'll go from anywhere from 70s music all the way through today's music. I mean, one of my favorite songs to play right now is by Dustin Lynch, "Love Me or Leave Me Alone." So the thing is if the crowd is wanting to rock out, we may jump into Skynyrd and some things like that, and then just see where it goes. And you just don't know what the crowd's wanting. Now these are all, you got a local kind of gigs and stuff. Sure. It's not a show per se. It's going out and playing. So we can mix it up however we want to.
I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm reading some of your bio, and you got to forgive me. Like I said, I'm trying to do 10 things at the same time. But you said I write what feels good and what I relate to. And I can understand that, but maybe you can elaborate so people who are listening understand what you're talking about.
I think you've got to be truthful when you're writing. If you haven't lived what you're writing about, how are you telling that perspective? Where's it coming from? So that's what I'm saying. You gotta know where it's coming from. You gotta know what feels good to you. It may not feel good, but it may be the right thing to write, about the sadder tunes and things like that. But if you look at as good as it gets, I'm sorry. I wrote that with Craig Monday. He's got several hits under his belt or songs written with, major guys. You think about that, and I kind of wrote that about my wife. I mean, winning, Checker Flag, the apple pie that won the blue ribbon, things like that it just kind of flows. We probably wrote this song within, 2 hours, sat down and knocked it out. And when it flows, it flows. But if you don't know what you're writing about, if you've never experienced it, it's not really coming from the heart.
And I find that, and this is no disrespect for our listeners who grew up in New York City where 8 million people are, or Los Angeles or, Munich or whatever the case may be. I'm like you.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in, I lived in St. James and Rolla. Neither one of them are what you call a metropolitan area by any means, right? So, and we would have bluegrass. I like telling this story at St. James specifically when I was going through junior high. On Sunday at the Dairy Queen in this gravel parking lot, if the weather, they would bring bluegrass bands would set up every Sunday, and people in lawn chairs would sit there and just chill out, free concert every Sunday.
Yes.
And
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and see, that's the way I grew up too. And so even my wife and I sometimes conflict because she grew up a little bit different here in Indiana than what I did. And it's just like, so when the listeners are out there, and especially that's why I call this show on Thursday, specifically mixing it up, because I get very moody at times, but I try to bring, a little bit of my life too. So how did you bring a little bit of your music in your world there in Missouri, when you were overseas, when you were hanging out with your buddies out there?
Are you talking about writing? Stuff
No,
like
no,
that?
I'm talking about just performing and just hanging out and playing your guitar. And
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I did bring my guitar with me. And MWR was closing down at that time, one of the places, and they had donated another Martin guitar to some friends of mine, and they just knew I played music. They came over and gave it to me.
oh wow,
So I ended up, at least, it's just like, it's kind of cool. The way they set up the places where you live over there, Walnut Shop, we have a little, whatever they're providing for us.
sweet.
A couple of my friends went over there and set up a songwriters night. Well, it was more not necessarily a songwriters, but a kind of a talent night. And, I would go over and play songs for the talent, for the people just in the talent show. And, did that probably almost every Thursday for the people just in the talent show. And, did that probably almost every Thursday night. There's some videos out there, pretty old ones, but they're out there playing in Iraq and Kuwait for the friends, It's pretty neat.
Oh yeah. I don't know. You probably didn't get a chance to listen to my Tuesday show, but I tell the story, and I actually played this song. It's called Tin Man from America, the band nationally American Tin Man. And and when I was I remember we were in the back of a Deuce and a Half, driving down a road for hours, and a guy breaks out an acoustic guitar and starts singing Tin Man. And I remember that to this day. It made a memory,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, when I was in Germany the first time, way back, friend of mine, he lives in Florida now. He's a firefighter, works for the government down there. And our first responders, they're awesome,
Absolutely.
Yeah, he spent his time in the Army, joined the Air Force for a little while. Now he's a first responder down in Florida, in the Keys. But we would sit in the motor pool. I'm a mechanic. We'd sit in the motor pool after we got finished with work, and we'd try to stump the chump on whatever song he was kicking out there, so we could name the artists and stuff. And that's how we became closest friends. It's just music brings us all together.
I mean, I don't know if you heard him, but we have our contributing music editor out of France. She does not speak English, for crying out loud, and she supports the station. Our social media manager's out of the UK.
That's awesome.
Music literally does bring us all together, and
right.
I think that's what kind of set AVR on fire. I mean, believe me, it's grown beyond our expectations by all means. But I like the fact that we have like a Terry Tanner, the story behind the story. We can always hear the song, but you never get to. Can you tell us maybe your lead CD song, Cracked Windshield, and why you named your CD Cracked Windshield?
Well, it's a story about if you are familiar with St. James in this area.
Oh yeah.
St. James in this area.
Oh yeah.
My dad grew up around Crocker, which is about 20 miles from St. James and about 10 miles from here at Fort Leonard Wood. He drove about a 2.5 ton dump truck, and it had the dump on the back, had a cracked windshield in the front. It was a 3-speed on the floor. And, all I would hear is all these stories about this truck growing up, and the business and the kids that my older brothers that would borrow the truck. I'd hear these stories about it, and the idea just came to me, about when it comes down to it, most of the time you don't want to do that. What you have and what you don't realize at the time is everything you need is probably right there in that little town.
Yep.
And that's what Cracked Windshield was basically about. I based it off the truck my dad owned. Delano's, if you know Missouri, owned Delano's, if you know Missouri. A lot of these gas stations have closed down around here or changed companies now, but it was a very popular gas station around this area. And then of course falling in love with your high school sweetheart or their hometown sweetheart, and you leave, go find out what's going on out in the world. It may change, so that's what that song's about.
That is too cool. Terry, how can people go out and buy your music? Where can they go?
Well, they can go to iTunes, look up Terry Tanner. They can go to Amazon, same thing, Terry Tanner. You can buy it from my website, terrytannermusic.com. all the digital media places out there have it online right now. CD Baby. So yeah, those are the main places right there.
Well, to let you know, once you are not the spotlight artist, you will move into the category spotlight artist. You will move into the category the artists we support, and you will be out there until you tell us to take you off.
Oh, that's sweet. That's awesome.
And now you need to go out and tell your battle buddies now wherever you're going, tune into AVR.
Oh, I've already started doing that.
Thank you, man. Ladies and gentlemen,
As you
go ahead.
Oh, as you know, I'm headed to Fort Hood next. So, I've told everyone here today they better be tuning in to AVR radio, AV radio. And, I showed them how to get the app and everything. So,
Terry, wish you only the best. And my gosh, when you get some new stuff, wherever you are and being internet based, we literally can interview you.